Alright, so let's fix some NVRAM chips. So here's one. I can take it out with a little screwdriver, a little bit of wiggling. And this is one that has a little bracket. Sometimes they come without a bracket. I have another one here. There's two types that you can distinguish, because one clearly has two parts and the other one is fully encased. That's a newer one. Also note that in the socket there is a notch on one side. So there's a little dimple here, there's a notch there. It may differ how it looks, but on one side there's a notch which should match a dot on the chip. See a dot here, and you see a dot over there. So the dot goes on the side where the dimple is. So that's important when we put it back. Right, let's start. Let me put this system away and open these up. If your NVRAM comes with a label like this with 6 hexadecimal numbers, take a note of them or make a picture of them, because we'll need that when we are going to reprogram them later. Some of the older chips do not have such a label. First I'll take the older one, which is a bit more easy, and I'll put it into an old socket just to protect the pins, because they easily bend. That's the most fragile part. And what I'll do is I'll saw the top part in half, about midway. Isn't that important. You'll notice when you're through, because the sound changed a little bit. So the top part is now broken in half, and with force I can remove these parts. You can be a little bit brutal. The chips themselves normally don't break. Okay, so that's the parts off. And now at the sides are connectors, wires that go to the chip and the crystal that are in the top part. And what I'm going to do is to use a cutter to get rid of a bit of this epoxy stuff to expose the wires. There's no chance of shorting stuff because there's no longer a battery inside. That one as well. So we have clear wiring here. And with that, the first part is done. And later I will show you how to solder the new components on there. Also here you see that there is a little dot on one side. So be careful when we put this thing back. Okay, so that's the old type. Then there's the new type, which is fully encased, and it's a bit harder. So again, I'm going to protect the pins with an old socket. And in this case we need to remove the outer cover first, and I use again cutters, and I just cut on the edge. That's one part, the other edge. Again, using quite a bit of force and aggression. Then the sides, and for that I need to temporarily remove it from the socket. Be careful not to damage the pins. So we're going just alongside the pins, and that's one half. The other half. Okay, we'll put it back in the socket. There it is. Okay, so now it's the top part that's still on there, and you can do this with a knife. Take that out. Okay, and now we have a clear separation of two sides. The big side holds the battery and the smaller side holds the crystal. I need to remove the plastic that's in between here. So again, I will be using the saw. And it's best to do this outside or with a mask on, because this is nasty stuff. Again, I can hear and feel when I've reached halfway. I'll make this a little bit wider. Okay, now we have a slit, and I can try to break off the okay, it goes. On the other side I will use this, and it's off. Now if you can't get it off, what you can do is use a Dremel to Dremel a little bit of material away here, so it's easier to break. But again, use some protection, as this dust that comes off is really nasty stuff. Now we've removed the top part. Again, we see that on one side there's a dot, but we know that this is the side of the crystal anyway, because the larger side has the battery. Again, as with the old version, I'm going to remove a little bit of this plastic that's here on the side, and this is very nice to solder now here as well. And with that, remove it from the temporary socket, and we have both chips ready to get their new battery installed. Here we are again with the two decapped timekeeper chips, NVRAM, and all we need to do is solder on a new crystal and a battery holder with a battery. Now I'm using these little PCBs designed by Glitchworks. They used to be sold on Tindy, but the hardware is actually open source, so I just had 100 PCBs made. So on here there is a crystal and a battery holder. It is attached to the chip in a nicely neat package, and you'll note that there is a little dot, and that needs to point to the dot that is on the chip, pin 1. So you have it the correct way around. I'll show you the finished result. It's just soldering 4 wires. Previously I said you could also leave the crystal in place. So that is the end where the dot is. And you could solder any battery holder for a 3-volt battery on there. The advantage is that you can use a CR2025 battery, which is more common than the smaller ones, the 1225 that are used in the Glitchworks device. But I think this is just a nice package. It doesn't make it that much higher than the original NVRAM, so it's easy to put in your system. But choice is up to you, of course. Okay, so I'm going to solder and show you the result. Right, soldering has been done. So again, make sure that you put it the right way on. All we need to do now is to insert a little battery. And I also like to put on a piece of tape, so if there is a board on top of the NVRAM, it doesn't make a short with the battery. And also I can put on the original codes that we found on there that we now need to reprogram. I've added the chip back into the system, noting where pin 1 needs to be. And I've used the online documentation to reprogram the ID prom. As you can see on the top, the Ethernet address and host ID is unknown. I've reprogrammed it. I'm going to reset it, and hopefully it will now show correct values. And there we see it has a host ID and an Ethernet address using the 6 hex digits that I got from the original NVRAM. And with that, the system is up and running again. Thank you for watching, and good luck with reviving your old machines.